without making things awkward or boring or predictable. And this is all about conversation skills, and it's really simple. I'll demonstrate it and then I'll explain it as I go along, and I'll help you to understand it so you can practice it and go and make it work for yourself. So for me, it starts off with questions. And I know a lot of people have got like a negative outlook on questions, because the cliche thing is you shouldn't ask somebody too many questions because it comes across boring, a job interview, or like you being a police officer or a detective. But it depends how you do it. If you do it the right way, then it's not boring, it's not invasive, it's not rude, it's not inappropriate. And the right way to do it is to be genuine. You've got to, if you're fake and you ask questions that you don't really want to ask to be polite, then that's when it's not going to work. It's not, people are not going to like that, or it's just not going to, you're not going to have a good connection. So to begin with, the question has to come from your heart. It has to come from curiosity, wanting to get to know that person. And if you ask the question with respect for the other person, people appreciate that, people sense that, they pick up on that. Just like when you're watching this video now, you can pick up on the fact that I respect all of you that come to this channel. I appreciate it, and might have met you for the first time today. So I'm a stranger to you to begin with. So this is how we do it. So a question that I always like to ask people is, what is it that I actually like to ask people where they're from to begin with, and from a respectful place. And my tone will project that I'm being respectful, and it's not investigating. It's because I'm fascinated with people, different cultures, and I might say that. So I'll be like, oh, where are you from? And then they will tell me, they'll be like, I'm from Turkey, or I'm from Italy, or England, or Spain, or Russia, or America. Now, once the person's told me where they're from, I will have something to say about that. I can say, I've got a friend from there, or I've got a few friends from your country, or something that I know, or I love the food. I love your main cuisine. For example, Turkish food. I love Turkish food. I love the traditional food, the kebab, the meat, the bread, the salad. I love it. My family love it. It's genuine. It's not, none of it's fabricated. And this is a great way to build rapport with someone, and usually the person will then ask questions. Then they'll be like, oh, how did you know about Turkish food? Or, how did you meet someone from there? Or have you been to Turkey? They'll ask. It's just human nature. And then obviously I'll generally say yes or no. So I know this stuff probably seems simple and obvious and straightforward, but yeah, that's it. That's the whole point. Most of these things are. It's just that people are scared. They don't have the confidence to speak to people authentically and genuinely. And obviously your personality, you want to have your personality within those questions, because anybody can ask these questions. These questions are, we can all ask each other these questions, and they're appropriate. I don't mind someone asking me where I'm from, I like it, or what music I like, or what food do I eat, as long as they're being respectful and they're not being, manipulative or anything like that. So that's really important. This is some really basic stuff. Now, my favourite part, and this is something I've learned about human psychology and speaking to people for years, all different types of people, is I love finding out what it is that people enjoy, whatever it is, what their hobbies are, what drives them. And the way I do that is when I feel comfortable with that person, or when I think it's the appropriate time, I'll ask them. I'll just say, I hope you don't mind me asking, or I'm interested in, what is your hobby? What do you enjoy? And I might even guess and assume that I know. I might say, oh, I thought you did photography. I thought you was into filmmaking. I thought you was into business or real estate. And you might get it wrong, but it doesn't matter, because the person you're interested in, there's respect and there's a genuine curiosity to get to know that person, to have rapport with that person, and you might get it right, and they might go, how did you know that? Yeah, how did you know I love filmmaking? Oh, because, and then you tell the truth. Or they can tell you, and then they can tell you what it is that they like. And If it's something that we both like, that's the sweet spot. And that's really where you want to try and get to when you're communicating with someone. You want to find a common ground. It's such a great bonus when you find that, let's say for example, on this channel there's different interesting things I cover. So for example, Manny Pacquiao, that might not mean nothing to a lot of you, but for those of you that love Pacquiao like I do and a fan of boxing, we've got rapport now. We have something common to talk about. So it's not going to be awkward. Oh, do you remember Pacquiao's fight with Oscar De La Hoya? Do you remember when Pacquiao fought Ricky Hatton? Do you remember when Pacquiao fought Miguel Cotto? What a great fight that was. So it's understanding these things, and it's having the confidence, to be honest. So that's really important. The next social skill, which is really important, is learning to listen, and to not just listen to the words that someone says, obviously, which is important, but to really kind of feel, where the person's coming from. Because obviously talking to people, it isn't just logical. Sometimes there's logic, but there's emotions. It's emotional. So you have to pay attention emotionally, not just with your ears, with hearing the words, but feeling the words, obviously, of what the person's saying, so you can understand where they're coming from and you can connect with them better. Because really that's what it's coming down to. You're trying to figure out a way in which you can build a connection with someone and a friendship. But like I said, asking questions is really important, and a mistake that people make, like I covered in one of my other videos, whether it's with just friendship, talking to the same sex, or if you're talking to the opposite sex that you're attracted to, is people ask questions, but then they move on to another question too quickly without seeing out the answer to the question they ask. Example, say if I said to someone, what's your biggest fear? What's the scariest thing that you've ever done? And somebody said, oh, I swam with sharks. I mean, that's an amazing thing to talk about, and it would be a terrible opportunity for you to go, okay, cool, and then to just move on and say, oh, what's your favourite movie? Because you've just basically missed an opportunity to elaborate on really important information that a person's just given you based on the question that you initially asked. You said to the person, what's your biggest fear? What's the scariest thing you've done? They said swim with sharks, where you should stay on it and say, wow, my next obvious thing would be, what was that like? What was the experience like? And that's something that everybody really loves to share with the right person. People like to share their experiences with one another. They like to go through the emotions and then they go back into their head and they're sharing that memory, and during that time you can listen. And I call it, attentive listening, where you're enjoying it. You're not just listening to be polite, but then you're not really caring. You're enjoying, and then you can continue. And obviously with sharks, it's such a broad area. Everybody's probably seen Jaws. And I can come up with some things that I know and say, oh, do you know when they first made the Jaws movie, when they first made it, they didn't use music, so it wasn't scary. But when they added the music onto the Jaws film, when they added the soundtrack, it was terrifying, because the music created emotions and so forth. And the person might say, oh, I knew that, oh, that's interesting. And then you can talk about that, and then you can drift off into something else organically, naturally. Because that's a huge part of great social skills, is where two people have got the social awareness, where they're not necessarily trying to force where they want the conversation can go, because that can really piss people off. It feels like you're trying to control things to a certain extent. But if the conversation's just naturally going to start off with sharks and fear-facing, and then it's going to go into traveling, then go with the flow. Go where the energy takes you. Go where it's appropriate in that moment. And that's another big skill with learning how to talk to people, is you can't really sit in front of a mirror, and I mean, you can do that, but it's probably not going to work for you. It's not going to be natural, because if you're talking to people and you're trying to act, unless you're doing a movie, which is great, then people are just going to immediately think you're strange, you're weird, which it would be weird to act like that. When you're acting, it's not socially acceptable. It doesn't fit in that moment. So it sounds like a lot when you break these things down, but it's it's not really. It's a lot. It sounds a lot when you're breaking them down because you're going through these things, but when you're in a conversation and you just start doing these things naturally, it's not a lot. So I really wanted to dissect and break down into as many pieces and steps and tools to give you today so you can go away and get better at speaking to new people, building rapport and making friends. And like I said, people generally do appreciate it when you listen to them when they're speaking and you don't interrupt them. Another really poor social skill which a lot of people have, mistake they make is they interrupt people when they're talking, and that's rude, that's bad manners. So when someone's talking, especially if it's something that's, you know, that's personal to them, just listen and be patient and wait until they finish, and then you've obviously got your opportunity to speak. And obviously it's like a tennis match, isn't it, if you get it right? Like, you serve, I serve to you by asking you a question, you know, you answer that question, and then when you finish you ask me a question and you're serving me back, and until we both reach a point where we're no longer asking each other questions because we've used questions as a tool, it's a means to get to the point where we both want to get to, whereas a point that you want to both get to is where we've broken down social barriers and our own social fears to arrive at the point where we both now feel comfortable. There's a nice atmosphere. We no longer need small talk to be polite or to get us through certain fears or certain uncomfortable emotions or awkwardness, because we've arrived at a point now where we're deep into a conversation. That's always the best bit for most people, for all of us. That's where you get the best emotions, the connection. You get out of your head into the body. So obviously, small talk has its place. I'm not a huge fan of it, most people are not, but it does have its place when it's needed. And that's really the way that, you know, you speak to a person. And it's like, obviously there's different people, so sometimes it's not about changing yourself, but you have to be adaptable from, you know, get on in the world. There are some people that haven't really got a sense of humour as much. They're more introverted, they're more shy. So making loads of jokes might not be appropriate, where if you're talking to someone who's more, the way that they communicate is more that sense of humour, making jokes, and you're like that, then you can riff off that. You can also connect with that person based on, you know, storytelling, making jokes, humour, which is a great thing to do. And then you get some people that are more introspective, and you can go down that route, and that can be great. So it's having the intelligence to know who you're talking to and kind of get a sense of what's appropriate in that moment for the person you're talking to, and also yourself. So these are some, you know, great life skills. But generally, you know, pretty much everybody responds to the same kind of thing, asking questions initially to get information in a way that's not, you know, like a detective. You're not trying to get information so you can then use it against someone. You're trying to get some information so you can get to know that person and potentially build some kind of friendship, some kind of rapport. Or even if it's not going to be a long-term friendship in that moment, you want to have some kind of connection. So just trying to think of a few more things. That's the main gist of it. But I'd say as well, like I've covered it, I'll just elaborate. A lot of it is about getting out of your head, because there's no better place to be or better emotions to feel than when you're talking to a person and you're not in your head. And that even goes for making video blogs and making YouTube videos, or being on a first date, or talking to people that you know. But in today's video, we're talking about strangers to begin with. And of course, initially, when strangers talk to each other, they initially are in their head. There is nervousness, that's human nature. So like I said, the questions are tools to get us out of here into the body more, into the present moment more, where where all opportunities are possible between people. And then who knows, maybe then we go from no longer being strangers, if you have a connection and rapport, and then you start seeing each other regularly, eventually you're no longer strangers, you're now friends. So I've just broken down today, you know, how to make friends through conversation skills, social skills, and doing it in a way where it's authentic, but it's appropriate socially. You're respecting the other person, you're respecting yourself. And I've done some demonstrations today of, you know, how to start a conversation, like I said, and I'm just going to leave it on this, the practice. Every time you ask someone a question, you can break this rule, but to begin with, usually before you break a rule, you've got to master it. You know, you've got to learn the fundamentals like you would in boxing or anything, martial arts or painting, anything in life. And then you can kind of break the rules because you've mastered the fundamentals and you've got the skill to do that. When you're new to all this stuff, you want to practice. For every question you ask, you don't want to move on to the next question until you've elaborated on that question or topic of interest for a while, so it doesn't fall into interview mode, interrogation, and being boring. And the example of that again is, what's your favourite food or your favourite cuisine? And someone could say stir-fry, Chinese food or Italian. So you don't move on straight away and just run out of ideas. You think and say, oh, okay, stir-fry. What ingredients do you use when you make a stir-fry then? Because there's different types of stir-fry. You've got chicken stir-fry, you've got prawn, you've got vegetarian, there's probably vegan. There's different types to which the person can tell you which stir-fry they make. Me personally, there's two types of stir-fries. I cook a chicken stir-fry and a prawn stir-fry, and sometimes I do my stir-fry with noodles, or other times I do it with rice. So again, another example. And then you can go on to say, you know, how did you come across stir-fry? Who showed you that? See how we're staying on the same topic, we're getting more out of it, rather than just saying, what food do you eat? Stir-fry, okay, cool, what music are you into? Where you're running off again, panicking, and not staying on that on topic, right? So I hope you enjoyed it today. I will make many more videos on this because I've realised I have a lot of experience, a lot of people need that experience, and it's an interesting topic. Let me know in the box below what helped you today and your experiences with talking to people, because we're always learning, we're always trying to learn how to get on better with each other and how to converse, all right? Become fearless. Talk to you soon.